are going to hand over now to Jan. So Jan, you are Secretary General of the association and also in charge of the portfolio. So you are going to give us a presentation, an overview of the portfolio. I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Nicolas. So yes, it's my pleasure to give you an update about our portfolio and what you will find in it. So first of all, what you need to understand is that our portfolio should be able to address all software and methodological assets that will address worthy consideration to enable engineering of AI-based system. So you will find methodology, it could be documentation, it could be a report, it could be also some benchmark about the tools we are using and some of the methods that have been applied. You will see also some software tool. So, but also we will find some demonstration and some use case that will be done, that it will be served as reference for all the work we are done. All this software methodology will be tested and evaluated and demonstrated in what we call our MLOps reference environment. So where and when do we start? We initially start from the let's say the research asset coming from the research program called 𝘂𝗽𝗂𝗁𝗂. And what we did last year is to try to, and let's say to open sourcing this asset based on our industrial partner priority. So the first step we have done is we have started to identify, of course, all the owner, what will be the maintainer of this asset, but also we work together to identify which license we should provide to this tool. Our recommendation is to use a license 𝗂𝘗𝘁𝗄𝗏 2.0 for software and Creative Commons for documentation. And basically what drive our recommendation is that we want to do a less constraint to our customers. So Apache 2.0 is permissive, it's commercial friendly, and also it gives some security and low legal risk for against patents and usable. For documentation, we decided to make sure that the documentation we can provide will be non-commercial use by default, and we can manage all the updates so that we authorize some modification, but with a complete control of the information, and we want to preserve the integrity of the content. We are also discussed with all the maintainers to identify the contribution strategy and especially the contribution license agreement to support what we call some specific industrial requirement. And as an example, we have a lot of people coming from the defense area. So for example, some of the industrial may be interesting to understand how all the software methodology fits with, for example, the international traffic of in-arm regulation information. So definitely this is something we need to take into consideration and we need to provide as an information for, let's say, our customers. So, as I said, we started from some research asset coming from research programs. So first thing we did last year is to make some early stage maturation process to make sure that the components that we will provide to our industrial will be adoptable and usable by our industrial partner in operation. So we did a lot of work in creating the code, the source code, to improve code quality with some tests to provide relevant documentation. Most of them are available online, and to define a real test plan and make sure that the test plan is executed as expected. So we introduce a new badge which is graduated, and in our catalog you should be able, some of the components that pass these steps. So it's when you see graduated label on one of the components, you can make sure that all these steps has been done already. Another requirement that coming and that will have a lot of impact on our future portfolio is modularity. Modularity is something that is really a key requirement. And for that, we have introduced some different concepts, make sure that, everybody understand how it works. The first one is the library. And we said that the library should be able to focus on a real problem to be solved and will manage all efficiency, computational efficiency, but make sure that the system is optimized as expected to answer to this problem. If you want to integrate this component, this library into a domain-specific or deployment-specific, you are going to use a bundle. And sometimes we call it project or demonstrator, but basically a bundle will be, of course, an integration of multiple library, but we will add it to this component, some additional component and wrappers, adapters, to make sure that it works in the dedicated business logic or match with use case specific needs. So this is some example of the bundle we could provide or propose. At the middle, for example, you have the library, and we can embed and enrich this library with some wrapper, for example, to easily manage the input output of the data, and we can also do that in the same way for output of the data. We can also embed all these elements into virtualenv, but also in Docker if necessary. And of course, if you need some additional business logic, you can compose your application with different logic and wrapper so that you can easily build something specific to your needs. And of course, we can do it in a generic way, but you can also, and in some cases, we can provide also with a specific wrapper, for example, to be connected to some specific MLOps pipeline, just like, for example, some ZenML wrapper to be able to easily get information from the artifact store. Sorry. Another requirement, we talk about modularity, so the ability to be able to compose a business logic from different components. But to do so, what we need also is to be able to identify interoperable component. And to do so, we have identified that we need to define some input and output in a way that it could be standardized, meaning that you can make sure that everybody could understand easily what will be the data, but also the model that will be put into as an input of your component, but also the data and the type of model that will go outside the component. And one of the work we have started to do this year and will be last year and will be continued this year is to make sure that we can propose appropriate interface for all these data deployment. And we are not doing, from scratch. What we have done, it's an example. We make a lot of state-of-the-art, and again, it will be continued this year, to identify what will be the type of data we should manipulate, what will be the type of supported model and storage, and so on. And we make also a first state-of-the-art to identify, is there some existing framework we can reuse in order to match with this expectation. And here you can see a first work, which is called interoperability matrix, and this is available in our catalog if you want to have a look. And of course, if you have some comment or if you want to update and help us to update this document, please let us know. So in a nutshell, what you can see here is how we proceed last year. So basically, all our deliverable was managed per quarter. So you can see in Q1 last year, we started to work on defining and building our reference environment. We did some state-of-the-art to position some of the some of the existing technology and library, thanks to another one. We also started to define and specify some use case that will be a reference for us. And you will see a lot of presentation today, which will be related to this Renault welding use case. We started also to update the first end-to-end approach for engineering methodology, so the methodology that was described by Carla. So we have a new release available, and we started to make some open source on let's say on blockbuster component. We also work on the strategical evolution. As I said, we said that modularity and interoperability will deeply structure and redefine a lot of components. So you can see, for example, in Q3, that we have started to work on the strategic evolution of some component, and the first one was the QMML, and Loic afterwards will tell more about that. We also work on applicability, and this is something that will be demonstrated also in the next presentation. So how we can use some of the technology we have with the Renault welding use case. And we also, for related to modularity, we also provide the first strategy of how we think that the portfolio should evolve. And we especially work on the monitoring and drift part. Again, most of these components are available in our catalog, so feel free to access to it. So here, for example, you have on the left side a knowledge base, because what we want to do is, as we have a lot of information, a lot of assets, and a lot of relation between these assets, we have decided to build a first knowledge page that structure all this relationship between component and you can see it on the left. And this is used for all our tools, and especially on the right side, you can see the new catalog of the association. And this catalog is using all the information on the knowledge graph to provide you with relevant information. Again, this catalog has been open a few days ago, so now it's live, it's available in production. So feel free to access to it. In this catalog, you will find some information, so example about some asset documentation and all the element I just described before. Here, this is an example of the component, the EQ model component. And you can see here, so this information, you will see all the information when you are logging. If you are not logging, you will see a very few information, all information related to the textual description and where to find the component. But if you are to have more information about what I call the data, the metadata, so all information related to what kind of trustworthy attribute the component is willing to work on, the engineering role, so who is able to use in which activity of the methodology, all the related document, and at the end of the slide, you can see what are the standard input and output this component is willing to manage. So please don't hesitate to log in the catalog to get all the information. Otherwise, you will have only a few of them. So as an example, you can see this component is able to manage tabular and time series data as input and will generate what we call anomaly score. We'll be able to generate some training model and so on. Oops. I don't know who is manipulated the slide. Yep. So as I said, use case is key in our strategy. Everything what we are doing will be evaluated through different industrial use case. So here you have a list of problem typology we have started to work on during the research program 𝗂𝗽𝗱𝘁𝗂𝘁, but also during the previous year. So you can see here that we have some problem typology identified in terms of demand forecasting, and we manage it with tabular data. We do this kind also of things with time series. Renault welding, welding anomaly detection with image classification is something also we have addressed. surrogate information with tabular data. We also work on use case related to scene understanding with object detection on images. Another scene understanding, but dedicated to segmentation with imaging. We also do some aerial photo interpretation and imaging, opinion mining, visual similarity, and so on and so on. And you can see that some of the confiance trustworthy metric has been evaluated through these different use cases. And robustness is definitely one of the most important features we have addressed, but we also work on uncertainty quantification, monitoring drift, explicability, and so on. So you can see a list. And of course, this is the first list. What we want to do eventually is to increase the number of problem and typology and related use case, and to make sure that we are able to assess our portfolio based on these different use cases. And you will have a concrete example later on with the welding detection challenge, where we can use a methodology and the related asset to be able to define a multi-criteria evaluation pipeline. Last slide I would like to provide to you today is, as I said, we have a reference MLOps environment today available where we can use, and we are using today for many reasons. The first one is to provide a clear blueprint for developers. So someone which is willing to develop something is able to reuse our MLOps environment. Reuse means that we provide all the information for you to deploy this reference environment in your premises, in your infrastructure. The reference environment, we operate our own reference environment, but only for support team and the association per se. But again, we can help you in deploying and operating this environment in your infrastructure if necessary. The second thing, and why we are using it, is that we want to be able to make sure that we can reproduce all the system we are building, and for example, to make sure that we are able to identify and to replay the component, to make sure that we can identify some tests and we can make sure that, some bugs, and we can make sure that we can fix them in an accurate way. So it's important for us to have a real reference environment, make sure that we can, in a confident way, fix all the issues you have identified in your infrastructure. And last thing, and something that we're going to do maybe this year, is to use our reference environment also to ensure traceability, especially for the demonstration we are going to build on industrial use case. So make sure that we can use these MLOps to track all the result, and make sure we can reproduce and we can follow the different improvement, especially on the concept we have defined based on the demonstrator we are going to build on industrial use cases. As an example, that's very, we are using a lot of well-known open source, and yes, I just highlight one of the two major tools we are using right now, which are Jupyter Hub and Argo workflows. And that's it for me. I don't know if you have some question. I think we have some time for a lot of questions. Otherwise, I can leave the floor to you, Nicolas, if you have a.
Yes, we have some question. I would like to. Do you see the question? How can models be used easily across several flavors of operating system like Unix and macOS and
Yeah. So yes, this could be managed in different ways. Of course, most of the library we are going to use will be Python oriented, so you can use virtualenv to do so. But also, what we are thinking to do is to use Dockerization and container, more generally speaking. So definitely, we can reuse this kind of tool and technology in order to make sure that we can manage, different operating system issues. Yeah. And will be done, as I said, as bundle. So it will not be implemented on the library per se, but most of the time we can provide some, bundle in order to make sure that we can use it on a Python environment, or maybe in some case we can reuse Docker in order to make sure that we are completely OS independent, I would say.
Okay, thank you. I think the other question is already answered by Nicolas about 𝘂𝘱 Association.